You know your home. You know which floorboard creaks, which window sticks in summer, which corner of the bedroom gets cold in January. For reasons you have never bothered to investigate. You know every room. You have walked every hall. You know exactly how much space your home contains. Or you think you do. The three people in tonight's stories also thought they knew. Then one of them pressed against a wall that moved. One of them noticed the outside of their house did not match the inside. One of them found a door behind a bookcase that had been sealed from within. What was on the other side changed everything they believed about where they had been living and who had been living there with them. Story number 1. The Bricked Arch. I bought my house 8 years ago. A Victorian terrace. 3 bedrooms, 2 reception rooms. A kitchen that had been badly extended in the 90s. And a cellar I used for storage. I knew the house the way you know any house. After 8 years of daily life in it. Completely. Without question. The discovery happened because of a leak. A slow leak in the kitchen, traced eventually to a pipe behind the wall on the north side. The plumber opened the plasterboard to access it. And when he pulled the section free, he stopped. He said, "Have you always known about this?" I looked where he was looking. Behind the plasterboard was a brick wall. That was not unusual. What was unusual was that the brick wall had an arch in it. A bricked-up arch. The bricks filling it were newer than the surrounding brickwork. Different color. Different weathering. Filled in deliberately. At some point after the house was built. I am not, by nature, a person who leaves things alone. I hired a structural engineer to confirm the wall was not load-bearing. It was not. I hired a builder to open it. Behind the arch was a room. Not a large room. Roughly 4 meters by 3. Low ceiling. No windows. Brick on all 4 sides and above. A stone floor with a drain in the center. The room was empty. Completely empty. No furniture. No objects. No indication of what it had been used for. Except for one thing. On the north wall. At roughly chest height. Scratched into the brick in lines that cut deep enough to have required significant effort, was a series of marks. I am not going to describe them in detail. I have been advised not to. What I will tell you is that a historian, brought in to assess the room, dated the scratches to the late 19th century, based on the oxidization of the exposed brick. She also told me that the drain in the floor was consistent with rooms of a specific type, used in that period. When I asked her what type, she took a moment before answering. She said, "Rooms used for purposes the household did not want visible from the street." She did not elaborate. I did not ask her to. The room is still there. I had it sealed again. New plasterboard over the arch. It looks exactly like a kitchen wall. But I know what is behind it. And sometimes, when the kitchen is quiet at night, and I am the last one awake, I think about the drain in the floor, and the marks on the wall, and what this house contained. Before I arrived to contain myself, I have never told my children about the room. I do not intend to. Story number 2. The missing meters. I want to start with a number, because numbers are what made me certain. I was not imagining it. My apartment is on the 4th floor of a converted warehouse building. 6 apartments total. Mine is 4B. I moved in 3 years ago. The building was converted in 2009. The original warehouse dates to 1887. My apartment is listed in the building's documentation as having a total floor area of 74 square meters. I measured it. I measured it not out of suspicion, but out of the particular restlessness that comes from working from home. During a long winter, I measured every room with a laser measure. As a Saturday afternoon project with no useful purpose. My apartment measured 61 square meters. I measured it again. 61.3 square meters. I measured it a third time, room by room, using a different method. 61 square meters. 13 square meters were listed in the building's documentation, but did not appear to exist inside my apartment. I am a quantity surveyor. I measure things for a living. I know the difference between a measurement error and a discrepancy. This was a discrepancy. I began mapping the exterior dimensions of the building against the floor plans on file with the building management company. It took 3 weekends. What I found was this. The northeast corner of my apartment, the corner where the bedroom meets the bathroom, contained a space approximately 4 meters by 3. That was present in the building's exterior measurements, but absent from every interior plan. From inside my apartment, the northeast corner was a solid wall. A wall I had stood against, leaned against, hung a mirror on. A wall that felt entirely like a wall. I knocked on it. The sound was hollow. I called the building management company. I told them what I had found. They told me the building had been fully surveyed during conversion, and that any discrepancy was almost certainly a documentation error. I told them I was a quantity surveyor, and that the exterior dimensions were unambiguous. They sent an engineer 2 weeks later. The engineer knocked on the wall. He did not speak for a moment. Then he said, "There is a void on the other side of this." It took another 6 weeks of building management correspondence before they agreed to investigate. The wall was constructed from a single layer of plasterboard, mounted on a timber frame. It had been built during the 2009 conversion. It had been built to conceal the space behind it. The space was 13.2 square meters. Exactly the missing area. Inside it, a section of the original 1887 warehouse wall. Brick. Victorian. Untouched since conversion. A timber support column from the original structure. And resting against the column, a single wooden chair. Not Victorian. The chair was modern. Flat pack construction. The kind you assemble yourself. It had been placed there during the 2009 conversion, after the plasterboard wall was built, in a space that was then sealed. It was placed there by someone who knew. The wall was going up behind them. The building management company could not identify who had placed it there. The conversion had been carried out by a contractor who was no longer in operation. The workers involved could not be traced. The chair is in the building management company's possession. The void has been properly surveyed and incorporated into my apartment's official floor plan. It is now a storage room. I use it for storage. I have never put a chair in it. I will never put a chair in it. Story number 3. The bookcase door, the glass of water, the most quietly devastating story in the series. I found the door on a Tuesday afternoon in September. I had lived in the house for 7 months. A detached Victorian property. 4 bedrooms, a study, 2 bathrooms, a dining room, a sitting room, a large kitchen. A house that had been on the market for 11 months before I bought it, which I had attributed to the price and the general market at the time. I had not attributed it to anything else. I had not had reason to. I was reorganizing the study. The study had a large built-in bookcase. along the east wall, floor to ceiling, heavy, original to the house. I had filled it with books over the 7 months, without ever moving it or looking behind it. On this Tuesday afternoon, I was pulling books from the lower shelves to access the skirting board behind them, where I believed there was a draft, when I removed the last row of books from the bottom shelf and put my hand to the skirting board. The bookcase moved. Not the skirting board. The entire bookcase. Inward. An inch. On hinges. I stood up. I put both hands flat on the bookcase. I pushed. It opened. On hinges set into the wall on the right side. Swinging inward. Silently. As if the mechanism had been maintained. Behind it was a door. An internal door. Standard Victorian proportions. Painted the same white as the bookcase backing. Invisible from the front. The door had a handle. The handle turned freely. But the door did not open. It was locked. Not with a standard lock. A bolt. A bolt on this side of the door. The study side. Shot home. Locked from inside the study. Whatever was on the other side of that door had been locked in. Or locked out. I stood in front of that door for a long time. I thought about the 11 months on the market. I thought about the previous owners, who I knew only as a couple who had moved abroad. I thought about why a bookcase would be built on hinges. I thought about why a door would be painted to be invisible. I thought about who bolts a door from a study, and then fills a bookcase in front of it, and leaves. I called a locksmith. She opened the lock within 20 minutes. Behind the door was a room, approximately 5 meters by 4. No windows. Plastered walls, painted white. The plaster was modern. Someone had replastered this room at some point. After the house was built. The room contained 3 things. A mattress on the floor. The mattress was old but had been covered with a fitted sheet. The sheet was clean. A small wooden table. On the table, a glass of water. Not fresh. The water had evaporated partially. A ring of residue on the inside of the glass. The glass had been full at some point, and had been sitting undisturbed long enough to drop to perhaps 2/3. And on the wall above the mattress, written in what appeared to be a permanent marker, a date. The date was 14 months before I moved in. 3 months before the house went on the market. Nothing else. Just the date. I called the police. The investigation found no evidence of a crime. No forensic material of concern. The previous owners were contacted. They cooperated with the investigation. They said they had not known about the room. They said they had not known about the door. They said the bookcase had always been there, and they had never moved it. The investigation was closed. The detective who spoke to me at the close of the investigation said that unexplained rooms in older properties were more common than people realized. That houses were altered, divided, extended, closed up over their lifetimes, and that gaps in documentation were ordinary. He said, "It is almost certainly nothing." I thanked him. I did not tell him about the glass of water. I had not mentioned it when I called the police. It had been removed before they arrived. I do not know why I removed it. I have thought about that decision many times. The mattress, the table, the date on the wall. These things were documented. These things were photographed and recorded. The glass of water I removed. I think perhaps I did not want to know how recently someone had been sitting in that room, drinking from it. I think perhaps I already knew. The room is now used as a storage space. The bookcase has been fixed permanently to the wall. The door behind it has been sealed with a deadbolt. On the study side, I check the deadbolt every night. It has never been disturbed. I check it anyway. Every night. Without exception. We assume our homes are known to us. We assume that what we can see is what there is. We assume the walls contain nothing but insulation and brick, and the accumulated silence of years. But houses are not fixed. They are altered, extended, divided, closed. They accumulate changes the way people accumulate history. Quietly, layer by layer, without announcing themselves. A room sealed behind plasterboard. 13 missing square meters. A door behind a bookcase, bolted from the study side. All three of these spaces existed while people lived in the houses that contained them. While they cooked and slept and called it home. None of them knew. That is the part that stays with me. Not what was in the rooms, but the not knowing. The years of daily life, conducted in the same air, as something sealed and silent. On the other side of a wall. Look at the walls of the room you are in right now. Do you know what is behind them? Are you certain? Thank you for listening. Comment your story. I read every story you send. Subscribe for new stories. And tonight, before you sleep, knock on your walls. Just once. Listen for the hollow